it's very good to see this thing as a division of two. So if I simply cut this and in a with a knife or something, so this part is nothing but Google and this part is nothing but cloud. So if I see cut it this way, we have one point, we have Google Cloud, and the other point we have cloud computing as a general, wherein everything we talk about in terms of, let's say, software development, anything we talk in software development, it needs hardware, right? I mean, the first definition you would be learning in operating system is like operating system is a communication between hardware and software. So it's the same thing. Whenever you are using laptop, you're joined from your laptop's hardware on which the softwares are running on the OS. I'm running from my MacBook. There is a hardware on which the OS is running and then software is installed. So we have this hardware and then we have software. And sitting in between was the OS part, which we will not worry about. It's for application development. That really doesn't matter. So when we say hardware, this was the infrastructure, which was always very important before. Okay. So right now, while setting up for the webinars, we always experiment with the laptops we are going to join. And I'm an instructor, and you might not know as attendees, but as an instructor, always some problem happens. So that's Murphy's law. If anything can go wrong, goes wrong. And in trying to troubleshoot, we have to be mostly working on the infrastructure side. So yesterday I formatted my Windows machine because it was giving some microphone issues. So in that, it turned out, so I formatted the whole OS, all the driver configuration, everything I reset, but the issue was not fixed. Then it turned out the jack in which we inject our microphone. So I have external microphone which I use, but the jack which I use for the install, plugging it in, that had problems. So my assumption that it must have been driver, or it must have been OS, or it must have been software. So the problems was in that layer, and eventually it turned out the problem was hardware, which now I can't get fixed because of the lockdown. You see, the management of software, right now what I did, I spent around maybe 3-4 hours yesterday in trying to formatting and setting up the software part and the OS part, then debugging the hardware part, trying out different configurations. It's the manual work which we have to do. That is what takes a lot of time. And the new paradigm of development is cloud. So cloud is, instead of having hardware by ourselves, instead of getting our blood pressure high and worrying about, I wonder if my machine is going to work out or not, instead of worrying about any of that, we simply move our hardware. Okay, so you see this hardware, hardware is now living in cloud. Oops, instead of cloud, let me just put it as a hardware. So this hardware is now living into cloud, and I'm accessing it through internet. And whoever is taking the job of providing me the service, it's their job to ensure that the hardware is giving me high SLA. So you see the headache of managing and maintaining my software, managing and maintaining my hardware, procuring my hardware. So procurement of that hardware is also a big headache. So all that job moves to cloud, and I simply use it. That's the advantage of cloud computing, wherein instead of lot of headache which I used to needed to do before, now it goes to cloud. And then one of the service providers of cloud computing is we have Google Cloud. So this is the kind of like foundation. And now if you think in terms of, let's say, technology, okay, if you think in terms of technology has always been moving forward, right? So if we think of technology, let's say, just think of your parents. In their time, if you're trying to teach them how to use cell phone, it's a lot of headache. I remember my dad had gone to MSCIT. So it is a computer course wherein it takes around few months, and they teach you what is mouse, how do you use the mouse, what is left click, what is right click, these kind of like details is taught. Now, that kind of knowledge, which was kind of like difficult maybe 10-20 years back, now everyone is expected to have. It's the same thing about cloud computing. Cloud computing was a new technology. It was a very useful thing 10, 12 years back. Now cloud computing is assumed to be a essential knowledge, no matter the developer. That's why one has to be conversant in this field now. Okay. So with that in mind, let's just kind of like get started. This thing is now the technology going forward, and we are going to learn to use this ourselves. Okay. So what is cloud computing? Like I already mentioned before, cloud computing is nothing but somebody else's computer. In the beginning, I don't know, people kind of like hated cloud. They said it's nothing but someone else's computer. There were many t-shirts around it. So when I used to go to meetups and conferences, they kind of like were pretty technical, but those who were talking about cloud in that time, they were looked down upon. Okay. Now it's no longer true. Cloud has become nothing but a next step in this evolution of how we do development. So in the beginning, it started with a laptop, not a laptop, even a personal machine. If we see personal computing, IBM, when the IBM started this revolution, no one would have imagined how far it would have gone. So then laptop to, it went, okay, I need a powerful machine. So it was a server. So then if I had, instead of server, I could have servers, because if I have more machines, then what do I do? Then after servers, it was even, I need even more. Then it became data center. So my own data center. Then if I'm spending a lot of time and money just dealing with the data centers, then I kind of like either, rent a place and give it to a vendor, or, somebody else manages it for me. So this has been the revolution from data center to a virtualized data center, wherein instead of manually having, let's say, tight coupling with the hardware, okay, if I just deal with it virtually, then that virtualization saves a lot of headache for me. So it's data center, then virtualized data center using virtualization technologies. And then the stage of evolution kind of like simply changed to serverless now. Okay. In terms of serverless, we are actually at a amazing point in technology. Okay. Now everyone is joined from home, right? So let's say from lockdown, you want to get a coffee. Okay. Now, before lockdown and after lockdown, let's divide our kitchen. So we have kitchen, and we have, let's say, kitchen. Okay. Now, before lockdown, kitchen was actually managed by whoever we hired, so mostly maid. So the kitchen who is managed by maid, what happens? We pay for the maintenance, we pay for maybe getting whatever ingredients we have, but the management part, the actual work part, that part is done by the maid, right? And if we think about now, where we have to do the management and everything, then that's this part now. So now after lockdown, it's we manage, we clean, and we do everything. Okay, it's like we do everything and we also pay for it. So you see the management part which is here, this management part is pretty maybe irritating and time consuming. Whereas when we go for this managed approach, somebody else is managing it for us and we are paying for the management, right? This frees up our time to focus it on what we want to do. And then the other approach is online. So if I go to Swiggy right now, okay, if I go to Swiggy right now and we are talking about coffee, right? Let's just order coffee. So I'm going to coffee, and let's see. Okay, this is the first coffee one. And let's say I want to order cold coffee. So yes, start afresh and continue and add. So right now, when I say, let's say, order this coffee, whose kitchen is going to get used? It is this Slay Coffee's kitchen. Then who is going to do the cleaning up there? It's that person. You see, everything here is completely done by this company or hotel through which I am ordering. So this kitchen which I'm using here is not my kitchen. This is the company through which I'm ordering. So for me, the management part is completely taken care by whoever is providing me the service. So for me, this has become serverless. You see, for me, this kitchen is actually kitchenless. It doesn't mean there is no kitchen there. It simply means I am not the one who is managing it, cleaning it, or I don't even know of its existence. This is what we exactly have here in cloud computing. When we have in Google Cloud right now, the emphasis is on trying to have everything as a serverless, wherein for us as a developers, we completely get abstracted from this computational power and we just focus on code. The management, the scalability, everything which a software might need is taken care automatically. This is what it means to be serverless. And when we are doing serverless approach, then it is actually very amazing in terms of developer productivity. Okay, we just have to focus on, we just have to focus on the coding part. Okay, so this is what the cloud computing has provided us. And now the cloud computing has become a much more important paradigm simply because of the current trend of using data. So you see, this is a very common quote nowadays. Every company is a data company. Data is the new electricity. Data is the new fuel, and blah 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 blah, stuff like this. So when we say stuff like this, it means there is a lot of power which can be leveraged when through the data. And when the data is huge, at that point it's gonna be difficult if I don't have an ecosystem or let's say set up in cloud. That's what it's going to be. What I want to do is like I want to have a ecosystem which is easy to use, easy to scale with help of cloud. So and when the data is high, what happens? Whoever is going to process the data, they will need a good hardware, right? That's where cloud computing comes into picture, and that's where Google Cloud has this approach towards cloud computing. So from the left hand side, let's talk about this thing. Oops. Infrastructure as a service. So when I was talking about laptop, okay, that was a classic example of me needing to own the hardware which I'm using. You see, because we are all kind of like joining in from websites, Zoom calls, and blah blah blah. We kind of need the hardware which is bare minimum meets the demand we have, right? So we have to own that infrastructure. Now, if we kind of like simply change that, and if we can actually rent that infrastructure instead of buying it ourselves, it's going to be a different situation altogether. If we rent that infrastructure, it's going to be cheaper for me because, excuse me, if it's going to be cheaper for me because maybe sometime I might not need something always. So let's say if I can rent a laptop, let's say I go for a night duty job and I can rent a laptop during the night, and when I'm done, I'll return it. And during daytime, somebody else might rent that laptop. So if I buy the laptop, I'm paying it for 24/7 usage, but I'm not actually using it 24/7. Whereas if I rent it, it becomes easier. So that is the renting thing. Cloud computing becomes easier. And when we move to this thing, which is nothing but platform as a service, it is nothing but that serverless approach. So when we say serverless, it doesn't mean there aren't any server. It's just that like I order food online, it becomes kitchenless for me. It has kitchen for whoever is actually building my order, but for me it is kitchenless. The job of management, cleaning, scaling, everything is of that place where I ordered it from. Same thing here. When I use this platform as a service, is the job of the app engine to allocate, procure hardware, and do everything on top of it, right? So we have a lot of different computing paradigms here, and which we can actually use to choose wherever we want to be. So we have this thing, this is the range of solutions which we have with us, and we can choose whatever we want based on the situation. Okay, so here a good example is house. So house, I have two options. I can buy or I can rent. Then after house we have hotel. Hotel is not buy unless you are Batman. In Justice League, towards the end, when there is Clark Kent's house is kind of getting acquired by his bank because he is not unable to pay the loan, then Bruce Wayne, he simply buys the bank, right? Similarly, unless you are Bruce Wayne, you are going to rent the hotel. You are not going to buy the hotel. Bruce Wayne will be buying the whole hotel. But for us, it's renting. So when we buy a house, it is lifetime, right? When we rent the house, it is actually yearly. When I rent the hotel, it is on the daily basis. You see, I'm getting more and more flexibility here. If there is a thing where I can actually rent a place, maybe hourly basis. So if I need it for few 2 hours, then I can rent it. So there, I think co-working spaces. In co-working space, if I want to simply, rent a meeting room, it's on hourly basis. So if I go someplace where it is maybe minute basis or something per second basis, that's the kind of like difference between buying and renting, right? So this is what we have here. We whenever we go to cloud, we kind of like pay for what we use, and we are renting the infrastructure. Okay, the infrastructure could be whatever I want. It could be virtual machines, it could be something else. Now in that infrastructure, let's say the infrastructure is kind of like this. So on cloud, it is, we have this power of renting, not hourly basis, not yearly basis, or not on permanent basis. It is simply like, per second billing also, like, so I can choose, okay, for 50 seconds, I need million machines, and after that, I don't need anything. We can do that. So it's kind of like a lot of features we have on cloud computing, and the infrastructure which is available to me when I use Google Cloud. The best part of the infrastructure is networking. Okay, so easiest way to make everyone go crazy is like enforce a lockdown and cut off everybody's internet. So if we simply cut off the internet, we will surely have riots. I mean, internet is, I think, what keeps us sane. I mean, I remember if the net goes down, I'll become restless. So networking is not just that way of connecting. Networking is also a way of transporting the data. And when a company is a data company, which has volume of data which ranges from GBs to TBs to petabyte, in that scenario, we actually need a system which handles that easily. Okay, so that's what we are trying to do. This is the kind of like cloud computing. Now, as I said before, there are lots of cloud computing platform providers. So we have had few questions on different cloud providers, different security features, networking features. So we have lots of features. Now there is a very good website. I'll be sharing these resources with all of you in a document. So if you go to cloudcompare.in, on this website, wait, it is comparecloud.in. Sorry, comparecloud.in. It is comparecloud.in. If you go there, this is as a place, has a comparison of different cloud providers and how do the products in terms of features stack against each other. Right now, if you come from a different cloud computing background, you simply check and compare your background with, let's say, Google Cloud thing, and you simply learn the extra delta of the knowledge. If you are starting from scratch, it doesn't matter. You simply simply start with Google Cloud. But if you come from your background, go to this page and you'll find it will be very helpful to you. So like I said before, I'm creating a document. So let me just paste this link there, so that once we are done, I'll share all these resources with everyone. Okay, so now going to the slides, let's go ahead and let's talk about the security part aspect of this cloud computing. Let me just get those slides here, and let's continue with the slides. So when I talked about cloud computing, it's the networking part which is very important, and Google Cloud's network is one of the best in the world. Google actually owns fiber optic cables. Google has put in, when we go for this thing, okay, this is fine. So let's say whenever I was taking internet, the connectivity to my ISP is going to be, direct line, in India, we just directly putting this LAN cable. But if I'm my internet service provider, let's just say, I'm here in Mumbai right now, and let's say my internet service provider is in Los Angeles, then he's not going to put in a LAN wire from LA to here, right? So you see, the internet connectivity across land is easy, but across continents is is difficult. And Google Cloud has put in, transatlantic fiber optic cables through sea, which have such a high bandwidth, and that is what we get when we are using Google Cloud. Okay, the network is taken care in a really amazing way. There are lots of features, wherein per second billing, we have automatic discounts, we have committed use discount, we have preemptible usage discount, we have custom types. All of these cost saving measures allows us to save money whenever I'm using the cloud computing platform. And then kind of like the security part is kind of like very good. I mean, we don't really think as an individual. Like on XKCD, I had read this comics wherein, let's say if a spy for avoiding hacking, we can create as much difficult encryption as we want, but if a human is leaking the password, it's not going to matter, right? It's the same thing here. On cloud, we have security. Zero-day vulnerabilities are fixed. Google has a team, Project Zero, which whose whole job is to ensure it's kind of like let's say risk-free. But I need to learn to use it. So you see here we have these kind of like services. Security is baked in, and we kind of like this baked in security has to have the usage. So now as you can see, we have breadth of this thing products which we have. One for compute, then we have few options for computing, then we have storage. So it's like for storage we have these kinds of like products. We have big data products, we have machine learning products, and over this series of webinars we are slowly going to move from one end, which is today is just the introduction. We are slowly going to graduate to, let's say, knowing all the compute, knowing all the storage, knowing all the big data, knowing all the machine learning. So this is how we are going to begin one by one by one. Okay, now let's think in terms of first part, which is how do I do the access management of my this thing. So that's where this thing which is identity access management comes here. Okay, so any company, let's say any company, we always have organization chart. Okay, now security, you see, when we start with security is something which is barely thought of by us as a developers, but it is very important for any organization, right? And that's why I'm talking with security first, even though it's boring for us developers. Okay, so let's compare all organization charts with how the security is kind of like done by on cloud. Okay, and here the fictional organization I'm going to take is not of Google. I could show you the org chart of Google, which is like Sundar Pichai on the top. Then I think somewhere down the line we are going to have Google Cloud, which is going to be part of Google. Then the hierarchy, let's not take that. If you want, you could also create the hierarchy of your own company, but for now let me take the hierarchy of MI6. I like MI6 because James Bond. The name is Bond, James Bond. So you see the fictional MI6 in that. MI6 is not fictional, but the James Bond world which we have there, it's kind of like, it's really interesting. We have James Bond, who is 007. Okay, the 7 number is nothing but the ID of James Bond. Okay, and then 00 is nothing but permission given to James Bond. So James Bond 00 means permission to kill in the field without approval. That's what it means. And how are these permissions actually given? They are given based on how the structure has been created. So James Bond is a part of an organization on which they have this thing, and then on top of that we assign extra permission, and that's how he knows that okay, I need to I have permission to kill in the field, and somebody doesn't have permission to kill in the field. So we kind of like create this resource hierarchy with help of which we kind of like create how the access is going to be. Okay, so that's the kind of like security part. Then it is simply project. The project is nothing but, instead of in our Gmail, okay, if we go to Gmail, our account is our email ID through which all the emails come there. Similarly, when I'm using Google Cloud or any cloud, it's all the kind of like project. We create a project, and everything is actually part of the project. It could be build is part of the project, resources are also part of the project itself. And then there are stuff like this. Project ID has to be unique, and some of it is partially chosen by us. Project name is kind of like not necessarily unique, and it's completely chosen by us, completely, not partially, completely. We can change it to remember as ever how we want and details like this. Okay, so that's the kind of like project thing. And previously I talked here about the resource hierarchy which we create. This we create like this, different folder structure. If I simply move, let's say James Bond is here 007, and he, let's say suddenly he gets sick of the feet, he meets someone, he gets married, and now he wants to transfer to a desk job. So all he has to do is simply move from this folder of agents to desk job, and then up by simply, instead of from here moving to desk job folder, all of the permissions and policies and everything gets automatically changed. So this is how we kind of like do the security management. It's very flexible, it is very fast, a bit irritating to set up in the beginning, but it is pretty cool. Okay, so we have kind of like talked about the security part, and okay, this part is nothing but just that one example. So here I give James Bond example if you want, but you could take any other example which you want. Here, this is kind of like a book example, wherein if I have a, let's say, shop which sells books, and I want to develop application for it. So I want to create a project which is part of maybe managing the shelves. I want to create a separate project which is part of maybe, let's say, billing. I want to create something else which is part of maybe something else completely. So you see here, I can decide my structure based on however I want to design. And based on structure, I give access. So this is what we have. We do the access management based on the structure. So until now, we talked about James Bond. We said 007. So 7 was the ID and 007 was the permission. So simply speaking, the cloud identity access management is nothing but first, who has permission to do what on which resource. So let's say the permission is very fine grained for James Bond. So let's say James Bond has permission to kill by hand, but not by gun. That's this thing, James Bond can kill by hands, but he can't kill by gun. So this is the kind of like fine grained access we can define. We want this fine grained access whenever we are working in companies, because I don't want my data to be exposed to someone who is not really needing that, which might kind of like lead to a lot of leaks and something. I mean, I don't want to be in the position where I need to kind of like deal with that, right? So let's simply kind of like define our architecture in such a way that I'm kind of like trying to do, let's say, minimalistic work, and everything is secure, right? So who can do what, where? This is what we simply have to remember: who can do what, where. And then there is a complete big audit report. If you kind of like check in the documentation, you can see how we can do this ourselves. Okay, for now we don't have kind of like time, all we saw was overview. But if you want, there is this document I told you before. In this document, you will get a short URL which is like some link, where in this link I'll put some IAM related resource as well, through which you should be able to actually do these things yourself. Okay, so we have this, again, a lot of details, but something which we can't really get into very depth of in a broad overview session like this. Now, how do we manage our identity? So I know the identity and security really boring part, but again, this is how it's good to start. So I could either identify as a Gmail account, or I could also create a Google account, which not necessarily has a Gmail account with it. Or it could be G Suite account, or it could be a cloud identity account of a domain. So it's like my identity can be any of these. It could be a group as well, or it could be anything else. Okay. So again, with this, we can have this sync as well. So if we are using kind of like, LDAP, wherein I could either use some Microsoft Active Directory, or I could be using LDAP, or I could be using something, some other product for my identity. I could use this directly and manage my identity of my cloud platform. Okay, so that's going to be one approach. Then That's the kind of like covers the boring part, the security and identity. Now let's just start. How do we interact with the Google Cloud platform? Okay, fun part is here, and let's just talk about it. Okay, now you see, let me show you in the website itself. Okay, so I have logged in to my Google Cloud Console. I've logged into my Google Cloud Console, and you see here I've signed in with my Google account, right? So here I currently will be charged for this month. Oh, for the current billing is like 110 days. I have wasted a lot of money. I'm paying per usage, but my usage is high. It's lucky it's internal account. I don't have to worry about the bill. I'm running some machine learning experiments for which I'm using it. But you get an idea. So I'm currently running 8 virtual machines, 3 buckets, 1 BigQuery instance, and blah 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 blah. Okay. So this is how I can interact. I can open, I can go to navigation menu, which is on the left hand side. I can open that, I can scroll down. Ooh, let's go to compute. Ooh, let's go to storage. Ooh, maybe let me go to networking. Ooh, there are network tiers. You could kind of like simply go through all of these and you can understand there are lots and lots of products here. And this is available to me to rent or use in a way I want. So there are a lot of products here. Excuse me. There are a lot of products here, so it's good if I can kind of like get an overview. So for that purpose, there is this thing GCP in 4 words or less. This is a GitHub repository in which all Google Cloud products, they are explained in this one cheat sheet. You could either print this cheat sheet or you could print this simple document and go through this one by one and see if you have all the prerequisite knowledge if for whatever role which you might want to do. So this is a pretty good resource. Let me copy this link and put it into this document which I am putting into, say, and let me say to do give IAM resources. So this is a document I'm creating for you. Okay, going back to our slides again. So slides, one part was, we use the UI. This is what this UI was. The UI part is like I go to cloud.console.google.com and then I simply use it through the UI. Another way is I could be using command line. Okay, I could be using command line from my locally installed machine. So I have actually configured my Linux machine to interact with my Google Cloud environment. So if I simply do gcloud compute instances list, this is the command I remember is going to run it, and it is going to give me list of all compute instances which are running in my Google Cloud. So you see, if I'm on Windows machine, I could install a putty something application and connect it through it to my Google Cloud environment. Or I could go back to web thing. This is my Google Cloud environment, right? Remember, in the web we had this. On the right hand side of wherever the search bar is there is this thing called as Cloud Shell. This Cloud Shell is nothing but a Linux machine available for free for us to interact with the cloud. We also have text editor option here, which is like if I open editor, I can kind of like open the editor and start working on it. But there are these many different ways of interacting with Google Cloud. Most commonly ones are this: I either use Cloud Shell or my local terminal, or I can use mobile apps or REST-based APIs. Okay, depends how I want to do it. Then SDK is what I have to install to be able to connect to my cloud computing environment. So the rest of the stuff doesn't really matter. And now we are part here at the VM. Okay, so let's check VM and let's check some overview of storage products and kind of like a bit of basic of this. It's 5:36, around 10 more minutes of lecture, a bit of demo and Q&A. Okay, okay. So this is the networking, and now let me just maybe start with the demo itself, and then we will go to the slides for it. So I go to scroll down, I go to Compute Engine, and inside Compute Engine, let's say I have created this machine which is XYZ or maybe PQR here. Okay, this is my PQR machine. Now if I am connecting to this PQR machine, I either have to have the networking setup, right? So there are one aspect of it. One is the hardware of the machine. Second, networking connectivity of the machine. Third, security of the machine. Security part is kind of like taken care many a times automatically, but I do have to ensure that I'm not unnecessarily exposing my ports, making it vulnerable. And if you would be watching news, the way Elon Musk named his baby, it's there is the XK series joke about it. So this is like SQL injection, XKCD. I'm sure you would have read this thing, but it's one of the funniest ones I ever saw. So let's just open this in new tab and this thing. So hi, this is your son's school. We are having problem with our computers. So then she says, you know what happened? Then she says, did you name your son Robert? Then end of the query, drop table students. So you see, if we don't prune our SQL, this is what might happen. Exact similar way, if we leave vulnerabilities, so not pruning the execution string, not sanitizing those input is a way of leaving us vulnerable. And if we do that, then that's our fault. That cannot be the fault of wherever I'm running my computation. It doesn't matter the cloud part, right? So we have the networking, we have the hardware, we have the storage, and we have the connectivity, right? I could be connecting using my VPC. Let me just bring those slides here and let's start. Okay. So these are kind of like details here. On Google Cloud of the networking part, we have this amazing feature that I could create my own virtual private cloud network, and that's global. So my developer sitting in India, sitting in US, sitting in Europe, sitting anywhere, okay, they all could be part of a network which is global. They could ping each other. They could kind of like feel like they are in the same network, but even though it's kind of like distributed all across the world. And we can create subnets across those network, but these subnets are regional. Subnets generally are always regional, so it doesn't really matter that much. But important feature to know. It's fun, having VPC networks which are global. Okay. Then we have compute engine. Compute engine is what I could kind of like choose whatever kind of like machine I want to use. I could choose one CPU, I could choose two CPUs, I could choose 96 CPUs, I could choose 4 terabytes of RAM as well. So on the compute, it is fun. If I go to my compute, this thing, and if I create an instance, then if I scroll down in the machine times, this is where I can actually see. The ultra high memory contains 160 virtual CPUs, and in 160 virtual CPUs, we actually have 3 terabytes of RAM. Okay, 3 terabytes of RAM is, you can imagine how big that RAM is. Okay, so you see, that's the kind of like seeing the compute engine, seeing the details, and stuff like this. So this was a lot of theoretical content, as you can see, but this doesn't mean that we are not going to be doing any hands-on stuff. We are going to do hands-on, and for that purpose, let's just check this as a lab, which is Google Cloud Essentials. Okay, we are giving you a free way of doing these labs. So if I simply jump to that slide where we are going to talk about it, let me just go to that slide. Okay, so this link you will be getting in a separate way, or I can also put that into the document which I'm sharing with you. So go to this link, bit.ly link. This will redirect you to a lab. Okay, you have to start that lab, execute that a bit, and when you end that lab, you actually get a 1 month free access. You get 1 month free access to execute all kinds of labs. Okay, so I'm going to use this, and I'm going to open this here in this link. Okay, let me just follow those. So bit.ly 2 capital L 5 NRHL. This redirects me here. Okay, we kind of like sign in with whatever my account is. If I don't have account, I'll create account. But after I do that, I kind of like get a 1 month access to execute all labs I want. So if I go to catalog here, on the catalog, we have more than 520 labs. So I would really recommend you, everybody, to leverage this opportunity to get hands-on feeling and knowledge of Google Cloud. And we are going to have some labs, some quests, which are as a homework. If you kind of like complete them, it will be good to get that hands-on experience once you follow this webinars. Okay, so let's go back to slides. This was the link I was talking about. Okay, let me just see in terms of the content, what should I talk about now? Okay, perfect. So it's like Quick Labs is simple. You know, this is a free way of executing. Okay, so let me just take this quest. Let me just open creating a virtual machine lab, which you can also execute. How to use Quick Labs? You click on Start Lab. After you click on Start Lab, this creates a free username and password. Okay, this free username and password, we log in into incognito window. Okay, incognito window is essential, because if we don't do that, what it is going to do is it will conflict with your Google account. Most of the times, I have the Google account and this conflicts with whatever I'm trying to do. So it's always recommended to use incognito window, nothing else. Okay, so let me copy paste the username and password which has been created here. So copy username, go to incognito window, open Google Cloud Console. So console is here. Okay, username pasted, password pasted. Then I have to open and go to this project, which is GCP Quick Labs underscore GCP something something something. So let me accept the license request. Let's say confirm. Okay, accepting license request and done. Now I have to select the project, which is whichever was automatically created. So after I have done that, now I'm ready. Now I'm ready to use Google Cloud for free. Remember, Google, any cloud platform, we are always renting. Whatever I use, I'm renting, so I have to pay for it. But if I create an account for the first time, there is $300 of free credit, which is available to me and which I can use to do whatever I want. But if I exceed that, as a backup, we have to keep our financial credit card information just in case, we get charged. So if you don't want to do that, that's why I use Quick Labs. All the billing is taken care. Do whatever you want. I mean, not whatever. There's going to be limitations, but yeah, you want to get used to using, and that's why this. What is the lab? It is asking me create virtual machine, and what's the name or something, instance, blah blah blah, and on that run a Linux server. So I'm going to run a very small version of this lab. I'll go to this navigation menu. I'll scroll down. Compute engine. Where is compute engine? Compute engine is here. I'll open that. And in this, I'll create a VM instance. So basic VM instance, whatever default configurations are available. I'm currently being charged $24 per month. If I run this configuration machine, which is one virtual CPU, let's make it 2. Now rate has changed, and let's create. Okay. So now what's happened? This thing gets created. I can connect it to it and do whatever I want there. I can install my website, upgrade my content creation something. So for MOOC, there is this thing which is Moodle. I could do my CMS there and stuff like this. I can simply connect to it via browser or external IP, which I have to ensure that it's connectable. So in terms of firewall or something, I'll have to add myself as exception to this compute instance. But that thing is happening automatically here when I click from my Google Cloud account. So this won't ask me any username and password. Why? Because the SSH key is exchanged, which ensures that it is secure. It's happening in the background automatically. Okay. So that was our kind of like, a taste or trailer of how to use Quick Labs, what is Google Cloud, how do we use Google Cloud. And whenever, generally whenever there is a wide spectrum of people, new to cloud or not new to cloud, very used to cloud, just new to Google Cloud, there is a wide range of stuff which we have. And whenever there is a wide range, we kind of like can't cater for just one specific subgroup. That's why it was like a broader session, hoping that I added value to almost everybody. If you want to go into more, then labs will be your best bet. Okay, so going back to our slides, in terms of content, we have covered everything. We talked about this bitly, and right now let's take just one thing, which is like the quest, which is going to be as a homework for the day. The quest is this: GCP essentials. So there, if you are new to cloud, it would be a great quest to go into, because one, it's just covering all the fundamental essentials, and by doing it hands-on, only then you learn it. I mean, no matter how much you learn by reading, you're not going to learn anything if you don't do it. It's the same thing here for machine learning as well. You have to have the hands-on knowledge. Okay, so that's why I would really recommend this quest. It will be a very good addition of the skill set you have